All right, haves and have not fans, this has been a video long requested before the final batch of episodes. I remember several people have been asking for quite a while. Jeremy, could you please tell us your personal ranking of the haves and the have-not seasons? And it was on my to-do list for a while, and then after I learned, hey, the next few episodes are the last ones, I mean, why not wait until once the show has fully completed its run before I gave my thoughts on the show as a whole? So in this particular video, this is all opinion. I'll give some reasons to my ranking, like, oh, this season was number 5 because, 1, 2, and 3. Like, I'll give little things there. In some of these seasons, I mean, the seasons range from, like, aside from the last couple seasons being shorter, 20 to like 30, 40 episodes. So I might highlight a couple episodes, but I'm not going to sit up here and just tell you hey, here's the best episode, here's the worst. I'll just give you my overall thoughts on, I feel like this season deserves this ranking because of this. Now, if you disagree with my ranking, again, this is just my opinion. Feel free to let me know your personal ranking in the comment section below. So, even though I titled the last 8 episodes of season 9, mainly because at that point I didn't care, because after years of watching the show, I think we all know that there has been a massive inconsistency as to what is a season finale versus a mid-season. Like, OWN will advertise in one way, the cast will say this thing, and then when the show returns, they'll just say something else. So I'll just include season 8 as, 16 episodes total. The 8 we got at the end, well, basically the tail end of 2020 into early 2021, as well as the last 8 episodes. So, the last 16 episodes will be all together. So, yeah, strangely enough, number 8, as in the lowest ranking season. Obviously, number 1 will be the highest. Number 8 is going to be season 8. I know it seems weird, but at the same time, it's kind of like, well, to be completely honest, the season was lacking in more areas than one. And I don't want to blame it entirely on season 8. I know that doesn't make a lot of sense, but season 7 and 8 just had a Frankenstein creation right in the middle. I mean, I've said it enough times on the channel that season 8 was supposed to be the final season, the final hurrah. But due to, I guess, OWN needing to stretch out the haves and the have-nots lifespan just a little bit longer, probably for the sake of getting their own shows, no pun intended, off the ground. Because without the haves and the have-nots, they probably didn't have enough available episodes of like Queen Sugar and whatnot at the time to allow the OWN network to fly without Tyler, due to the danger of losing a lot of subscribers or, people to buy their network. So that's why they had to create so many new episodes that just seem completely filler-ish. So, I mean, for me, I would have to say that the first 8 episodes of season 8 overall were better than the last 8. I feel like the last 8 has so much working against it due to the fact that it's the final 8 episodes. But I mean, I'm probably wrong when I say this, but I feel like we spent the most time, or the most unnecessary amount of time, with the Jeffrey storylines. I mean, it was bad enough when him and Justin would eat up so much damn screen time. But even when Justin was killed off, Jeffrey still had an they should have spent, if they would have spent even a fraction, like a third of the time in this final season, focusing on William and Jeffrey, allegedly his real father, that would have made far more better storytelling, because we could have seen the dynamic between Jeffrey and David possibly shift, where it's like Jeffrey questioning his relationship with the man who raised him versus his father, his biological father, who he never knew. And that could have created a nice little rift that could have been, expounded upon as the season went forward. However, season 8 just had so many wasted scenes because, every single episode, I feel like fans more than ever were waiting for something to happen because it's like, hey, these are the final 8 episodes. We got to pick up the pace. The story needs to go because, like I said, that one interview that Angela and Renee did prior to the final 8 episodes airing, they said, hey, if there are people out there waiting for every single thing to be resolved, don't look for that. It's not going to happen that way. So basically, it means that we knew not everything would be resolved, but we thought the conclusion, if you want to call it that, would have been a lot better than it was. Sure, the final episode got like a 1.18 million rating in terms of views, which was tremendous, but at the same time, it was awful compared to a lot of it was awful when asked by various fans what their thoughts were. So to be completely honest, I think that season 8 truly is one of, if not the worst seasons of the show, because I feel like more people are going to talk about how terrible the show ended as opposed to talking about how amazing the show was during the first couple years. You'll see that as I go into the ranking further, how a lot of these later seasons are going to be towards the bottom of my rankings, while most of the early seasons will be at the top. I don't even feel like that's a spoiler because I think we all probably feel the same way. So season 8, in my opinion, is at the bottom of the tier list as the lowest ranking season of the show. And the last 8 episodes, the ratings were just not good. The finale was the only episode from A Game of Chess all the way to Dark Intentions. That was the only episode to break 1 million views. Because if you look at the next season, which I'm going to talk about at number 7, is, again, ironically enough, season 7. And I'm not going to have it where it's going to be seasons 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's different ranking, but I feel the last 2 seasons definitely deserve to be in the last 2 slots. Season 7. Oh, I'm sorry. I meant to. I actually have it in my notes here, but season 8 was episodes 181 to 196. It was 16 episodes total. And now we're at season 7, which was episode 161 through episode 180. And it was 20 episodes total. This was going to be the bottom. This was going to be number 8. But I did slightly put it above the final season due to the fact that the ratings for this season were way better than the final season. Even if you accompany, not just the final 8 episodes, I'm talking all 16 episodes. Like, every single episode had over 1 million viewers each Tuesday night. Hell, most of the episodes had like a 1.5 or above. None of them cracked 2 million, but the ratings were definitely there. We're talking about like episodes from Are You Happy all the way down to The Reaping. This was originally supposed to be the final season, and I believe that. A lot of people were saying, well, dang, it's kind of weird, like the episode synopsis and whatnot definitely don't match up with the events of the finale, or the final episodes. Like, for example, Father's Day, The Reaping. Those are the kind of episodes I'm like, yeah, I bet Father's Day was the William and Jeffrey episode. The Reaping was definitely everybody reaping what they sown. That made a lot of sense. But then when you added in a freaking season of nothing, it just makes no sense at all. Like Bananas Foster, I wouldn't be surprised if that was the episode where Wyatt was originally supposed to die. But no. Alright, so let's get into why I feel like this season is so low. Even though I put it above the final season, it's still runner-up. I think the most damning part of this season is the fact that each episode introduced damn near 2 to 5 ambiguous characters. And when I say ambiguous, I'm like, why the hell are they even here? They're doing nothing for the story except for wasting out even more time. And I feel like, if I remember correctly, this was the season where it truly felt like the main cast were the secondary cast. Like, we spent so much time on Colby, Tanner, and I could be forgetting. I remember there was a time where I could name at least 15 plus characters, but they introduced, I feel like, 20 plus characters over the course of this one season. Characters who just came out of nowhere to eat up screen time. Like, we would spend more time with Madison, Colby, and those couple dudes that were with him, as opposed to what's Veronica doing. And I feel like this was the first season where main cast members were missing. And I guess that goes into the whole reshoot territory, where like Candace wouldn't be in a few episodes, Wyatt wouldn't be in some episodes, Catherine, Jim, because of the fact that, yeah, these were definitely reshoots. So you could tell Tyler just threw these scenes together to stretch things out. So I feel like season 7 just had a lot going against it. And then, of course, episode 6, Mr. Jim. Nobody wants to remember that. But this season, my goodness, you could just tell at this point the show was on its last leg, and we were praying for it to end right here. So then we go into what I believe is the number 6 ranking for seasons. We're talking season 4, episodes 85 through episode 107. And this was 23 episodes total, going from A Cup of Tea all the way down to The Veronica Show. Once again, I feel like at this point, this was when the show, in my opinion, really began to stretch. Where episodes would just be dragging on for far longer than they needed to. I mean, sure, this episode, or this season, truly had some of the more memorable moments from the episode. Like, I mean, this series as a whole, like, from Melissa getting into the car wreck with Veronica in the finale, to I believe Quincy Jr.'s murder. But also, I feel like this was the season where we really started to ramp up the Justin and Jeffrey scenes. Like, trust and believe, it got worse in other seasons, but at the same time, this is where it really just started. And I just feel like this particular season was at a point where Tyler Perry was working on his other projects as well. Like, If Loving You Is Wrong, Too Close to Home. So you could tell the quality was really dipping. So I'd say that this season isn't at the very bottom, but I'd still put it close to the bottom, where it didn't have as many memorable episodes as some of the more impressive seasons, in my personal opinion. So here we go to number 5. Number 5, which is season 3, ranging from the episodes 62 to 84, 23 episodes total. The Waters Run Deep to Promise Is Kept. Yeah, I feel like this season, the highlight of season 2, that I feel like to this day, the best finale ever, When the Chickens Come Home. It set the bar very, very high. But this was the season that introduced Justin, when, Candace and Jeffrey were trying to cover up the Quincy murder. And of course, this had the death of Maggie Day. Jim was still in jail for the whole thing about getting arrested in the season 2 finale. And it was just a matter of, the characters really trying to put things together. And believe it or not, even when Jim was behind bars, it just showed that even if you hate him for good reason, he was definitely the leader of the pack, because of the fact that the haves would get away with so much. But I feel like this season was truly the season where there was a divide. When I say divide, I mean all the characters were trying to do their own thing as opposed to having one person in charge to really, rally the troops, so to speak. Veronica was doing what Veronica gonna do. And then, David was just trying to help Jim. Catherine was going off the deep end. And then, of course, we had the finale where Catherine had killed Jennifer Salison out of rage of not getting the inheritance back from Wyatt. And, Wyatt was just going through his thing the entire season, being self-destructive as always. And it was just crazy. And then, of course, I think that this season really had a lot of back and forth where, Hannah was trying to get custody of her grandson. But I'd say that season 3 was definitely one that had some great episodes, but I do feel like there were some seasons that really did it better, in my personal opinion. Now, this one, we're going to number 4, in my opinion, for being a very strong but long ass season. Season 5. Episodes 108 through 151, the longest season of the show. 44 episodes total. Afraid of Flames, January 9th, 2018. And this ran all the way to Out of Time, March 19th, 2019. Now, I remember being exhausted with this season, but the reason I put it so high is the fact that overall, this is one of, not my favorite, but one of my favorites, mainly because of the tattoo saga. I remember for damn near a year, well, basically probably close to a year, going on and on and on about Derek being the tattoo man, the lion tattoo. People thought I was crazy, but at the end of the season, I was right. Haha. Seriously, I mean, if I could just say that about the season, that's honestly all I gotta say. But we had the introduction of like Vinnie Malone, but then it got to the point where things really got dumb, for Benny trying to get money and everything along those lines, and it was just a matter of making bad decisions. But then, of course, I feel like even though I wasn't the biggest fan of the Charles storyline, this was when the story was actually kind of good because of the fact that Candace was actually in over his head. In over her head. As opposed to a situation where you actually see her having the upper hand all the time. This is when Candace was starting to realize, hey, I'm not the best like I thought. And of course, she was still mourning the death of her son, and we all know I wasn't a fan of Pimp Candace, but I feel like this season, aside from the tattoo stuff, the strongest things were, the deaths, the triple death, technically 5, if you want to call it that. Okay, Oscar, Erica, Melissa, like that trifecta, their deaths were handled way better than the finale of the show. And I mean, when I say 5, it's like, because Erica may have been pregnant. We knew Melissa was pregnant. So it's like, oh, them and their children were killed. But this, however, was sadly when Erica regressed, because as soon as we got to the first episode where Erica was allowed to stay in David's new house, that's pretty much all she did. She was just there. I believe the only time she actually came out of the house was to deliver some clothes to G at the hotel. And then that was it. But then we got the change of Melissa pretty much banging anyone who would come through Veronica's front door, and I remember wishing it was me. But yeah, season 5 was definitely a contender for one of the top seasons. Now we get to the top three, and I know that this particular choice might seem a bit weird, but sometimes short and sweet is the way to go. So number 3, in my opinion, is season 6, which ran from episodes 152 to 160. A Wicked Web to Show Not Tell. This was the shortest season ever, from May 7th through July 2nd of 2019. Again, it was 9 episodes total. And even though there was a lot of Justin and Jeffrey, I think this was the most compelling storytelling of these two characters, because shit got real. It seemed like the first 2 to 3 episodes had guns being pointed at people. Said like Justin would point a gun at Jeffrey, I think, and then he pointed a gun at David. Then I believe Justin had a gun pointed at him and Jeffrey's head and pulled the trigger. And we were all like, oh my God, did he kill Jeffrey? That was one of my favorite, okay, now, is he dead kind of moments, because of the fact that it got real. It was really, really, really interesting. Then, of course, you know, when Veronica got Justin arrested for slapping her and then, you know, had him gang raped and jailed, all that stuff. So I feel like as a Justin hater, this was a season where I was like, yeah, get him. Because I think before that, didn't David hire those 3 guys to beat the hell out of Justin for what he did to Jeffrey? And then, you know, of course, Veronica took it to the next level by throwing him in jail, then getting him gang raped. So I think for me, this really began to encompass the time frame where network television really doesn't have long seasons of shows like they used to. I mean, most television shows nowadays range from like 8 to like 20 episodes, if that, before the next season. So I feel like if the haves and the have-nots had shorter seasons like this, then they would have gotten a lot more done. Because even though this wasn't a perfect season, I think it did a good job of each week the story moved forward in a way where I couldn't wait for the next episode, as opposed to, oh gosh, 3 weeks and nothing. So I definitely feel like, you know, season 6 was good because it was supposed to be the next to the last season. So that's probably why I felt like things ramped up just a bit. Then we get to, this is a tough one because it could change depending on what day you ask me. Like, number 2 could have been number 1. And number 1 could have been number 2. But I'd have to say that, and trust and believe, this is difficult. But looking back at the episode listing and, you know, breaking things down, I would have to say the number 2 spot goes to season 1. Episodes 1, The Big Surprise, to episode 36, Checkmate. And that was 36 episodes total. Now, again, this could easily be number 1, but it just depends on my mood. So, what can I say about season 1 that hasn't been said before? You know, Amanda being the reason I even started falling in love with the show. You know, just the fact that I could say Amanda's the reason it's number 1. Enough said. Because if you knew me long enough, then you know Amanda was my first true love of the haves and the have-nots. But this season encapsulated what Temptation Tuesday really meant. This was back when the show would trend by character. Like, I remember Wednesday night, you know, I was just randomly online and I saw Fatima trending for Sisters, you know, with almost 30,000 tweets at the time. So you would see hashtag the haves and the have-nots. Yes, people, this was back when the hashtag was the haves and the have-nots, not HAHN. And I think, like, what was it, 140 was the character limit on Twitter at the time before they updated it. So just so you know, this was the season that got me started on Twitter during the doing the WordPress blog and whatnot. But I have to say that this was at a time where characters truly were developing. The story was trying to find itself. It wasn't perfect all the time. It definitely wasn't, but it really kept you intrigued as to what would happen next. You know, you had the introduction of Maggie Day, the whole Judges to Governor's Mansion storyline between Jim and David, the hit and run with Little Lizzie and Benny due to Wyatt. And then, of course, you know, Amanda's mental breakdown, Hannah's coming of age story, her friendship with Catherine truly blossoming, but that not having a perfect or smooth transition because there were a lot of obstacles in their way. We had the introduction of the Malones, and of course, you know, the beginning of Veronica's dissension into madness. We had the beginning stages, not the in-your-face explosive Veronica of later years, but it was definitely in the making, people. So it's been requested that, because I actually started doing this, but I stopped like at episode 2. But Jeremy, why don't you go back and do videos on the episodes that you didn't review because you were only blogging at the time? So I've been considering, going through the first couple seasons, however many episodes it was that I didn't initially do videos on. And because I think it was around season 3 when I started doing YouTube. So I might do that. That'll be kind of fun. It depends though. So I'd say season 1 is in the number 2 slot, which obviously leaves one more as the number 1, and that is season 2, episodes 37 through 61, 25 episodes total. The power dance to when the chickens come home. Now, I do feel like this season did have one of the more aggravating starting points, because season 1 ended with the shooting at the Cryer estate, and the big question was who died, who got shot, who, what's going on. And it's kind of difficult to imagine it, folks, because I remember the break being long. Like at this time, this is when hiatuses were like a few months, as opposed to like 6 or whatever. But July 9th, which was initially season 2 as opposed to season 1, was the ending of season 1, and then season 2 began on January 6th. So we almost had to wait 6 months to figure out what happened. But I feel like the reason things really sucked was because we waited so many episodes to figure out who got shot. I mean, I think it was either at the end of episode 3 or episode 4 when Hannah went into the bedroom and then found Amanda's body, and then it's like, oh my god, and we never really figured out who did it, even though Wyatt said he did. But that aside, we have some very good things, like when Warlock and Jim met up, the introduction of Oscar, the Amanda funeral side plot, where, yeah, I call it a side plot because the funeral, like, we only see them coming from the damn graveyard. When Jim and Catherine were interrogating Candace, which I love that moment. The beginning of Veronica's affair with Benny, her burning the house with David on the inside, Quincy Jr. being found and rescued, the ending of the freaking season when the chickens come home, which is still the highest rated episode of the Haves and Have-Nots ever. And that finale was incredible, where Oscar revealed his true colors to Candace, and then Jim gave that incredible speech where Toxic, Terrell, Professor Ken, and all those characters were killed. This season definitely had a lot of epic moments. So if I do finish my re-review, if you will, of doing videos of the episodes I never reviewed, I cannot wait to get to this one, which is episode 61, so it'll take a while to get there. But when the chickens come home, definitely one of my favorite episodes. So in my personal opinion, just do a quick recap. Coming in at the last season is season 8. Number 7 is season 7. Number 6 is season 4. Number 5 is season 3. Number 4 is season 5. Number 3 is season 6. Number 2 is season 1. And number 1 is season 2. Once again, if you disagree with my ranking, feel free to let me know in the comment section below. What were some of my favorite moments? Could be some of your least favorite moments for one reason or another. And yeah, if there are any other kind of ranking videos you want me to do, feel free to let me know in the comment section below. And we'll go from there. So thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll talk to you all in the next video.